Hello there. My name's Jamie Firth. I am a former artistic director of the Criterion Theatre, and I'm very much delighted to be involved in this, which is the Criterion 60th Anniversary Memories Project, which is a series of interviews with Criterion members, past and present, audience members, people who've been involved with the Criterion to celebrate its 60th anniversary. With me to introduce this project is John Elves, who is currently the chair of the Criterion Theatre.
Good evening.
And Keith Railton, who is the archivist of the Criterion Theatre and the president of the Criterion Theatre. I should probably put that one first. You outrank yourself in this project.
Story of my life.
John, what are we doing here? What's the idea?
Well, 2021 marks the 60th year since the Criterion Players, who were a group of local actors, and they purchased the Victorian Chapel in Berkeley Road South, which converted it through lots of fundraising and hard work and made the theatre that we know and love today. So this year is a year-long celebration for us of our building and the core of our theatre. And we're doing where we can, COVID allowing, where we can.
I was going to say, this isn't exactly what we would have planned to have for the 60th anniversary. For the 40th and 50th, we've had big celebrations inside the theatre. And this time, due to nature, we're having to celebrate it outside.
I think my key phrase at the moment is we're flexible, and every plan that we make has to be flexible, and we have lots of things to consider to make sure that we're safe and we can do the things. But we've kicked off the anniversary with a Zoom production of the play that we did on the 25th of February, which was 60 years to the night when that play, The Italian Straw Hat, was the first play that was performed in the new building. And that's kind of kick-started our anniversary events. And we have others planned. We've got an exhibition, an online exhibition coming up, which we hope to not only release online, but hopefully within the building when we can open the building again, which is it was a project we did for a play that we performed a couple of years ago, Much Ado About Nothing, which we had a couple of students from the local university in taking pictures right from auditions all the way through to performance, which nobody has seen as yet. So that will be quite interesting. It will show that whole, from the first idea of doing a play to the actual performance, which I think will be interesting. We have a couple of parties planned. We have some Criterion members doing various sponsorship events around the 60th anniversary to raise money for the theatre. So we've got a lot planned. We're hoping that as things get easier going forward, we'll be able to move a lot quicker.
And Keith, as the archivist of the theatre, there is, I should say, on the website, there is a splendid archive of various pictures and the history of the theatre. Do you want to tell us where the theatre began, where it came from?
Well, I can tell you quite a few things about that, but what I really want to focus on is the archive itself, because it's what we're going to try and do this year is not a new project. It's more a continuation of what has been going on for quite a long time. As you say, we've got a splendid archive now, but it wasn't always so. And I suppose it must have started about 40 years ago. And as far as I can remember, we were having like one of our regular working weekends where all the company pitch in and do all those jobs that you've been putting to one side for so long and try and make a social event out of it as well at the same time. I mean, you've both been on them, you know what they're like. It's hard work, but it's good fun. And it's a great sense of what the Criterion is all about, working together to produce something that at the end of the day we can be proud of. Anyway, this particular annual working weekend, I think I was cleaning out the box office, and we were about to take the old box office down, and I think we were about to build a new one. Anyway, in amongst all the envelopes and files and everything you get at the bottom of old offices that have kicked around for a long time, there was a bundle with a folder in, and it contained a few old photos and programs of productions. And I knew there were more old programs and photographs, particularly in the dressing rooms, not only in a couple of boxes, but also stuck on the walls. And, you know, we tend to, if we're in a production, we usually put either the program up and some photographs as well. But there are always historic photographs there as well. So I knew there was some there, and I knew there was some in the wardrobe. And I thought, actually, this is a terrible shame, because these are going to probably be thrown away. And if they are, they're perhaps the only record we've actually got, apart from what's in our heads, of historic productions. Okay, it not only what the name of the production was, but what they look like and some of the people who were actually in them. And I think the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, if I cared so much about them, then perhaps I ought to do something about it. And so I started to pull together as many of these historic photographs as I could. And I scoured everywhere in the theatre. I talked to lots of people. I talked to my friends to begin with and see if they had any stuff. And of course they did. And gradually over the next few years, I built up quite a bulky collection. Now at that stage, I was keeping them at home because I didn't want to leave them at the theatre, because we know what happens if you just leave things at the theatre. Somebody sets fire to them or burns them and throws them away. So I thought the best thing is to keep them at home. And of course, you can imagine how well that went down. So I put them in the attic. I more or less forgot about them for a while. But before I did that, I listed what we'd got and worked out also what was missing. And believe me, there was a great deal missing. You're talking then quite a lot of material and a lot of plays we'd done. And remember, I'm talking here not just about when we moved into the Criterion building, but also before that, as you've mentioned, Jamie, about the Warwick Road players, and John's mentioned, who started in 1955. So we had some of their records as well. So in the end, I talked to the board at the time and said, look, I really think we ought to do something about this. Let's write out to people and see what they've got. So that's what we did. We did sort of like an appeal by a newsletter then. And we got a very, very good response. People went into their attics, they went into their garages, they looked everywhere, boxes, suitcases, and of course the much loved but very dog-eared scrap albums that everybody was keeping. And they donated stuff, either the originals or copies of them if they were too precious to part with. And amongst that were posters, which I hadn't seen before, reviews of the plays, articles that people had written about the theatre and the special events that we'd done, all sorts of different things. And I thought, this is getting very, very big now. There's a lot of stuff here. I was starting to get worried. I suppose not just about the weight on the attic, but also the responsibility I seemed to have taken on, because all this stuff was coming to me and there was only one copy of a lot of it. And if it disappeared, you know, then it was gone forever. And luckily, technology came to the rescue at that stage. And by some means, I'd got hold of a scanner, and we're talking about the early 90s now. And gradually, over a period of time, and it took me several years to do this, and I couldn't do it full time. So I tended to do a play or two a week, and I'd scan laboriously all these images in. And Jane's saying, you're really taking on a lot here. And I said, I've got to finish it now because, you know, I've started it. So eventually I got most of it done. And it was then that luck came to my rescue again, because our technology, the people who were working on at the front end of technology at the theatre and our technical teams, including people like Becky Bartlett and eventually Pete Gillam, were starting to develop the first Criterion website. And it was rudimentary to start with, and it contained just basic information, but gradually as it developed, it got more sophisticated and the technology got better. And by the time we reached our 50th birthday, 10 years ago, Pete Gillam had worked so hard on this, and I'd done my piece, and together we'd uploaded all this material. And on our 50th birthday, we launched the Criterion Archive to the waiting world. And we got a very good reception. And since then, Peter's continued to develop with all sorts of ideas and help from everybody. A fantastic website that now is our communication hub. It's our box office. And it's also got this amazing archive where people from all over the world, believe me, tap into this. Often people who've been involved in the theatre somewhere. And people out of the blue ring me up and say, you know, I've been given your name. You don't know me, but I live in so-and-so. And I used to be part of the Criterion. Can I send you some stuff that you're missing? It still happens. So the internet and this fantastic website enable me to do that. And the website now has got many thousands of images on it, which is amazing. So
yeah, I mean, what we'll do is underneath the video, we will put the link so that people can go and look at it. But basically, it's an entire history of the Criterion Theatre with a list of every play that's been done, all of the archive materials we have for them, and all of the people that were involved in them as well. And then you can actually search by people or by play or by writer.
It is wonderful. I love going, I love Googling myself and then going back through the archive and watching my hair grow. It's
well, we can actually enhance the pictures if you give us a small donation, John. I think
I'm working on that.
About that, Jamie, is yes, and it is incredible. But it wasn't too long ago that I started thinking and talking to other people that I realized there was a major component missing from the archive. And that was because it was just pictures. But what it did for the people who saw them, particularly if they were involved in the productions themselves, was it stirred memories. And it's the memories, it's that third dimension that we were lacking. It's the stories, it's the experiences we go through in putting on a production. It's the laughs that you have, it's the disasters, it's the things that you'd rather just wipe from your memory forever. It's the things you feel really proud of. And it's also about the people and the lifelong friendships you've made. And the people you've lost and the people who've come into the theatre all the time. So it's an ongoing story, and pictures will only record part of that story. So I think talking to John and to other people, we were determined to try and put another dimension into it, which is to capture something which is a piece of social history. Not frozen at a moment in time, but going forward into the future. So you've got this amazing picture of all these people in this big community, this family, the word that's often used, that interconnects and relates and has a fund of memories that can enhance our story.
There are some wonderful stories as well. And I think the 60th anniversary is the perfect place to launch this and kickstart it, to try and get all those stories and keep them safe for the next 60 years.
Well, it's true, because 2021, of course, is City of Culture year for Coventry. So it's perfect timing. And interestingly enough, the Coventry University contacted us, and we had a conversation with them about a new archive they were funding called Digital Coventry, where they're trying to capture images across the city of what has made the city great and everything else. And they were fascinated by the Criterion because they'd seen the website and they wanted to incorporate part of that. So Pete Gillam and I have been building a bridge between us. So we're going to transfer about 500 of our images and maybe eventually our stories onto this citywide website, which of course is going to get worldwide coverage as well.
I was going to say, I mean, that's the main aim of this project. The Memories project is basically, we've talked about in the past the history of the building and the history of that. But what we haven't really got is a map of the roots of the theatre, the people of the theatre. And it's my great pleasure that you've asked me to do this, where I'm going to spend this year talking to as many people as I can about their memories and trying to get some of these connected lines drawn between. I say today we're talking about the overall arching aims of the project. Both of you will return, I hope, to talk about your individual memories.
Some of them, yes.
Yeah, only a few.
we need to get them out of you before you forget them all.
Yeah.
And yeah, enrich this archive with some of that personality and the people, which, as Keith says, are now worldwide. There are people who've been at the theatre and left and gone to separate places, and we're going to try and catch up with as many people of those as we can.
I think it could become, it's a bit like the work that they did during the war to record ordinary people's memories through the war. And some of those have become quite famous now, but really we're just ordinary people who got together in a community. But it's very interesting going forward, projecting it forward 50 or 60 years to the people then. Some of this will be really different and fascinating, I'm sure. It's not just about people strutting around the stage. It's about the people who make the theatre tick, including the audiences, as you've said, all the backstage people, the people who make, the coffee, the people who just come and help occasionally. It's that collective memory that's important.
And something we've not really covered is, for those that aren't familiar with what the Criterion is, we are a little theatre guild theatre, an amateur theatre, which I despise the word because a lot of exactly. A lot of people refer to it as amateurish. They link amateur to amateurish, and that's exactly not what it is. It's a collective of people who, I mean, Keith, talk about why the Criterion is called the Criterion.
The Criterion's called the Criterion because when the theatre started, when the Criterion players broke away from where they were working, which was a local church, they broke away because of a disagreement. And the disagreement was quite a straightforward one. It was about the choice of play they wanted to put on, and the powers that be in the church disagreed with the choice of play. And our wonderful late director of productions, Jeff Bennett, who was the driving force behind starting the Criterion, had a discussion with the minister in charge, which went along the lines of, have you ever read this play? And the fellow said, no, I haven't. And he said, well, how can you comment on it then? And he said, well, I know what sort of thing it is. It's got bad language in and that sort of thing. He said, but it's a good play, and characters in that play would speak like that. And, we believe it's a good play. And they disagreed, and eventually they shook hands and the Criterion Players were formed, but they decided then that they needed a set of standards to aspire to. And the word criterion came in because so the history tells me, the apocryphal history tells me that they were trawling through the London papers and they came across this name Criterion and thought, that's a good name, nobody else has got that, and it sums up exactly what we're about. You know, standards to aspire to. Whatever we do, we must believe in, we must do it well, it must be good. And okay, we might fail, but at least we've chosen something that we think is worthwhile doing. And so that's why it became the Criterion, you know, a standard of excellence to aspire to.
And that's a perfect example of what we're talking about, isn't it? I mean, I've been involved in the theatre 25 odd years, and only recently have I heard that version of the story and the origin story. You know, the thought of losing those sort of stories is exactly what this project's about.
It was, and they worked very hard. I mean, luckily some of the founder members are still with us. And I think, Jamie, you've already talked to a couple of them. And they're very proud of what they did. I don't think they realized quite what they were going to achieve at the start. It was a bit touch and go. And they had luck, but and finding the building at the right time was a great thing to do. So when we talk about celebrating the 60th anniversary, it's about when they opened the first play in the theatre. Criterion Players started in 1955.
Yeah, that was based elsewhere, and then they managed to find the building that is now the Criterion Theatre, which was the Wesleyan Chapel?
Methodist Chapel, yes, Wesleyan.
Methodist Chapel.
But I mean, that's because the church had moved on and built a big new church on the corner of Earlston Island, which is obviously still there, but this was being used as a Sunday school. And eventually they built the big church hall and that was used as a Sunday school. So this became surplus. And it was by pure chance that they found out about it. Somebody tipped them off and they hadn't got any money. I mean, these people were all, you know, relatively young. They were trying to pay their mortgages, do all sorts of different things. So they did everything they could to raise the cash. And it took them about 18 months to raise enough money to pay off the loans that they'd had to purchase the theatre. But they got it. And they converted it.
An incredible undertaking, isn't it? And you know, that story should be told, because I find it fascinating that they had the courage, I think, and the chutzpah to go and do that.
I think they did, and they weren't sure about it, and they were quite worried about it. And Chris Harris, as she was then, Chris Murley now, who Jamie's talked to, was secretary at that time, I think, and she had to sign some of the documents. In fact, I sent her a few weeks ago a copy of the original documents that she'd signed. When she was signing her life, you know, really a professional life away, and they had the courage to do it. So I have every respect for what they did.
Yeah, I think from early chats with them as well, I've found it amazing that the things that they talk about, like the values that they had, the things they went through, constantly fundraising, constantly giving, like hours and hours, and cleaning the theatre at weekends, and, you know, all just mucking in and doing it, are exactly the values that are actually still alive today, 60 years on.
And if you read back, one of the things, many things that Jeff left me was a fantastic back run of the copies of Criteria, which you may remember was the Criterion House magazine. And I've got about 25 years of them, and they from 1961 onwards. And it's a constant struggle to keep the place open. It really is. It was touch and go. Sometimes they were making money, sometimes they weren't. And there were constantly borrowing and trying to keep things going. So it was tough. And there was a lot of competition in the area then. The time we're talking about, in the 50s and 60s, there was a huge number of drama societies and a lot of huge factories with drama societies. And the Criterion would take place in drama festivals at the Technical College that went on for 2 weeks with 3 plays a night, competitive festivals, youth festivals as well. So it was a big competitive world to try and get people through your door.
And as well as talking about the past, a thought to the future. John, I suppose you're best placed to talk to this. So this year we're celebrating the 60th anniversary. I remember celebrating the 40th and thinking it was amazing. It's been going 40 years, and now we're halfway on again from then.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? Yes.
So where do you see the theatre at the moment? And coronavirus aside,
well,
where do you see it at the moment, and where is it going?
I think we're in a good position. It's been a challenging 12 months, and no doubt will be a further challenge over the next few months as we look and drive forward to open, as long as we're safe and can do so without endangering any of our volunteers or audience. But I think it's really important that we get back again. We've got plans, always flexible, always changing, but we do have plans. We've got 2 shows that we're planning to do. Hopefully, no firm dates at the moment, but hopefully sometime around the end of June, beginning of July, and another one potentially end of August, beginning of September is where we've penciled them in, and we are actively working towards that. Of course, I always describe the theatre as a bit of a machine. It's like a train that drives forward. So we do maybe 8 or 9 shows a season, and as one finishes, we're rehearsing the next one, we're knocking the set down, and there are teams of people that are used to doing this, and we've got to get those people back involved and back on and driving it forward. And there is what seems like a huge appetite to do that, but we've obviously got to do it safely, and we've got to do it slowly. So we're not rushing, we're taking our time. But to me, this year will be about getting the theatre open again, and hopefully towards the end of the year being able to do some absolute social events to celebrate our anniversary and to celebrate the fact that we can all be together again. There's a real heart to the Criterion Theatre. I wandered in one day, dropped somebody into the building, and I never left. And there's a reason for that. And these stories and this courage shown by the people that started the theatre has carried on. It's a real tight-knit community, and we want to expand on that, and we want other people to share what the theatre's about. I personally want the theatre to be around for another 60 years, and I see it very much as my job to underpin that and make sure that that happens.
I think that's very important, John. And, you know, from my own point of view, I've been a member of the theatre for a long time, but I owe a debt of gratitude to the Criterion. Criterion has touched my life. It's helped me become what I am today, whatever that may be. But it's given me confidence, and it's given me friends, and it's given me my family, my wife, and you know, my family, and we are lifelong friends as well, who still meet, who still talk, and who support each other. But we wouldn't have got through the last year without the people who supported us financially as well. And it shows the affection in which the Criterion is held by the amount of donations that people have sent, so we could just keep the theatre safe in lockdown, so we could pay the bills, which we still have to pay, don't we, John?
Absolutely. Theatre may be dark, but
And it's because of that affection that we hope when we reopen fully, and they've been very supportive while we've put on online productions, but when we open properly, we hope those audiences will come back with new audiences as well. And as far as touching people's lives, that's why we're asking for everybody who has helped over the last 60 years to give us their memories, because it's obviously touched other people as well. So I would say if the Criterion means anything to you, if it's touched your life, share your experiences, good or bad, with us, because it will be a great opportunity.
And you can do that easily. I will probably be knocking on people's doors for the next 6 months or so. But also on the archive itself, you can submit your own memories against any of the plays that are on there.
Details for getting in touch are on the website. All the contact details are there. Please, we love hearing from people who have a connection with us. So please get in touch and you know, tell us what you know, basically.
Yeah. And do share this with anyone you know as well, as a kickoff. I said this is just the very beginning of this series of memories. So if you know anybody that was connected with the theatre, encourage them to get in touch, to get online and post their memories against those shows.
Absolutely, and hopefully, you know, going forward, you'll have more interesting people than me and Keith on.
I wouldn't say that.
No, that's true.
We're gonna strive for it.
Yeah, obviously aim high.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of this first foray into the Memories project. I look forward to seeing you both again individually, at which point you can talk about each other with particular memories.
Actually, we probably know our best stories, each other's stories that will never be recorded. So.
It seems that no one quite has the exact same memory of any particular event, so that's what I'm looking forward to getting into.
Fascinating. Yeah.
It's basically that's life, Jamie. You know.
I'm looking forward to being like the Sun's 3 a.m. Gossip Girls and uncovering all of this sordid past.
Yeah.
Yeah. Indeed.
Thanks so much, guys. I look forward to speaking to you very soon.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
And we'll cut there somewhere.
Have we done? Has it done now?
Yeah.